The skies above Seoul darkened as the Galactic Hegemony's warships materialized in Earth's orbit. Dr. Park Ji-won watched from her quantum physics laboratory as the news broadcasts showed destruction raining down on military bases worldwide. The morning had started like any other. She had been running tests on quantum field interactions when her assistant burst through the door, face pale with shock. "Dr. Park, you need to see this," he had gasped, turning on the wall screen with shaking hands. Now 3 hours later, Ji-won stood motionless before that same screen, watching footage of bases in America, Russia, China, and across Europe burning under precise energy weapons fire. The aliens, if that's what they were, hadn't bothered with introductions or demands before attacking. The strikes came without warning, without mercy. "They're targeting our defenses but preserving infrastructure," observed Captain Kim Dae-ho, watching alongside her. "They want our planet intact." The captain had arrived an hour ago, part of South Korea's rapid response team, seeking scientific insights into the attack. "Look there," he pointed to footage from satellite feeds. "They could level our cities, but they're carefully avoiding power plants, dams, factories." His voice was steady, but Ji-won could see the tight clench of his jaw. "They want resources. Maybe slaves too." Ji-won nodded absently, her mind already racing ahead. She moved to her workstation, pulling up data from the university's deep space monitoring equipment. The computer struggled to analyze the readings from the alien ships, but certain patterns looked strangely familiar. "Run a comparison with Experiment 37B, she told her system. When the results appeared, a chill ran down her spine. "Their technology, it operates on quantum principles similar to my research." She turned to Dae-ho with wide eyes. "For the past 3 years, I've been studying theoretical shield systems based on quantum field manipulation. These ships, they're using something remarkably similar, just more advanced." Dae-ho stepped closer. "Can you explain it simply? Think of it like this. They're using energy fields that exist in multiple states at once, making them nearly impenetrable to conventional weapons. But," her voice quickened with realization, "if they're using what I think they are, there's a fundamental instability in the field harmonics." The captain's phone rang. As he stepped away to answer it, Ji-won dove deeper into her analysis. By the time Dae-ho returned, she was scribbling equations furiously on her tablet. "The Defense Council is meeting in an hour. Representatives from every major nation will be there virtually," he said. "They're asking for any insights, any potential weaknesses we can exploit." Ji-won looked up, her eyes bright with purpose. "I need to be in that meeting." 90 minutes later, Ji-won found herself addressing faces she'd only seen on news broadcasts, generals, prime ministers, presidents, all looking equally grim. "The alien shields operate on quantum principles. That theoretically shouldn't be stable," she explained, forcing herself to speak clearly despite her racing thoughts. "They've solved this by using a harmonizing frequency that maintains the field coherence. If we can identify this frequency and generate a counterphase wave—" "Dr. Park," interrupted a stern-faced American general, "we need solutions, not theories. These things have wiped out 80% of our air forces and are picking apart our ground defenses like they're made of paper." Ji-won took a deep breath. "Their shields have a fundamental vulnerability we can exploit," she explained, with more confidence than she felt. "They never anticipated that we'd understand the mechanics of their technology. If you give me resources and 24 hours, I believe we can develop a device that will disable their shields." The room fell silent. 24 hours, repeated. The South Korean president slowly. "Dr. Park, we may not have 24 minutes before they move on civilian targets." As if responding to his words, a military aide rushed in, whispering urgently in his ear. The president's face darkened further. "They've sent a message. Universal broadcast on all frequencies in perfect English." He nodded to someone off-screen, and a new video appeared. The alien on screen looked almost human, except for the bluish tint to its skin and eyes that seemed too large, too dark. When it spoke, its mouth moved oddly around the words, "People of Earth, your defenses are insufficient. Your technology is primitive. Your resistance is wasteful. Submit to the Galactic Hegemony and most of you will live to serve. Resist and we will reduce your population to a manageable number. You have 6 hours to surrender control of your governments and military assets. The message ended. No one spoke for several heartbeats. 6 hours, G1 finally said. Not enough time for my original plan, but her mind raced through possibilities, discarding and refining ideas at lightning speed. But maybe enough time to jury-rig a proof of concept. If it works, we can scale up quickly. What do you need? Asked the Korean president. Access to the quantum computing lab at Seoul National University, all the rare earth elements we can gather, and every electrical engineer within driving distance. Of the city, she answered without hesitation. As the council debated her request, another message came through. Earth's UN Secretary-General had sent a response to the aliens, a request for negotiations, for more time to consider their terms. They'll know we're stalling, someone said. Yes, agreed G1. But from their perspective, what can we possibly develop in a few extra hours that could threaten them? Their arrogance might be our only advantage. The alien commander, believing victory assured, accepted the request for talks. 6 more hours were granted, precious time bought with diplomatic doublespeak and false promises of surrender. As she was escorted to her lab with emergency powers and resources beyond anything she'd ever commanded, G1 felt the weight of humanity's future pressing down on her shoulders. But beneath the fear was something else, determination and the first spark of hope. In an underground facility beneath the mountains outside Seoul, G1 led a team of scientists working around the clock on Project Thunder. The space had been a nuclear bunker, built during colder times. Now it served as humanity's last hope. 48 hours had passed since the initial invasion. The negotiations had bought them time, but everyone knew it was running out, is key. "Meet the frequency modulator," G1 said, her voice hoarse from lack of sleep. Her eyes burned, but she couldn't stop now. Around her, 20 of South Korea's top physicists and engineers worked with silent intensity, their faces lit by the blue glow of screens and the occasional spark from welding equipment. The lab door slid open with a hiss. Captain Kim entered, accompanied by a stocky man in a rumpled military uniform. "Dr. Park," Kim said, "this is Lee Hyunwoo, Military Engineering Corps. He helped recover something you need to see." Hyunwoo nodded curtly. "We shot down one of their scout ships over the Yellow Sea. Small craft, 2 occupants. Both dead on. Impact, but the technology." He placed a metal case on the table and opened it. Inside lay twisted pieces of alien metal and circuitry. Some of it survived. G1's eyes widened. Until now, they'd been working purely from scan data and theoretical models. Having actual alien tech to study might make the impossible merely difficult. "How did you bring it down?" she asked, already pulling on gloves to examine the debris. "Lucky shot," Hyunwoo admitted. "Something about the water. It was skimming low over the waves when our destroyer hit it with everything we had. We think the shield harmonics were disrupted by the sea spray." G1 nodded, gently turning over a piece of what appeared to be a control panel. The characters etched into it were unlike any human language, but the circuitry beneath was eerily familiar. "Their quantum modulation is more advanced than ours, but the principles are the same," she murmured, more to herself than anyone else. "If we can reverse engineer this..." For the next 6 hours, G1 and Hyunwoo barely spoke except to request tools or measurements. The military engineer might not understand quantum physics, but his practical knowledge of how systems integrated was proving invaluable. "Look at this," Hyunwoo said finally, breaking their focused silence. He'd connected a piece of the alien shield generator to their test equipment. The frequency patterns, they're cycling, but in a predictable sequence. G1 analyzed the readouts. "Run it against the scans we took of the ships in orbit." The computer compared the data points. Perfect match. "The aliens standardized everything," noted Hyunwoo, examining the broader implications. "Their entire fleet uses identical shield frequencies." He shook his head in disbelief. "Why would an advanced civilization make such a basic tactical error?" "That's their weakness," replied G1, excitement creeping into her voice despite her exhaustion. "They value efficiency over adaptability, probably been the dominant species so long. They've forgotten what it's like to face a real threat." She turned to address the entire team. We need to build a device that can generate a counter-frequency pulse, something that will disrupt their quantum field at precisely the right harmonic. If we time it correctly, their shield should collapse completely for about 15 seconds. 15 seconds isn't much, commented one of the younger physicists. It's enough, said a new voice. They turned to see General Kang Sunho entering the lab, his uniform pristine despite the chaos of the past 2 days. 15 seconds is an eternity in combat. If we know exactly when their shields will drop, we can coordinate missile strikes from our remaining submarines and hidden launcher sites. Above them, though they couldn't see it from their underground fortress, the Empire grew impatient. Minor bombardments increased as a show of force when diplomatic talks stalled. News feeds showed precision strikes against secondary military targets, airfields, naval ports, missile silos already emptied of their weapons. The general's aide brought him updates on a secure tablet. His expression darkened as he read. They've started taking out power infrastructure in North America and Europe, he reported, still avoiding civilian centers, but they're increasing pressure. Our negotiators can't stall much longer. He glanced around the lab, taking in the exhausted faces and cluttered workbenches. Please tell me you're close to something. Ji-won exchanged looks with Hyun-woo. We have a theoretical model that should work, but building a device that can generate and focus that much quantum energy, we've never done anything like this before. What do you need? The quantum generators from the particle physics lab at Case University for starters, she said, and access to the satellite uplink station at Daejeon. If this works, we'll need to broadcast the disruptor signal globally. The general nodded. Done. But you have 12 hours, maximum. After that... He didn't need to finish the thought. As the general left to make arrangements, Ji-won rubbed her temples. The pressure was crushing, but somehow it focused her mind to crystal clarity. They think we're just playing for time, said General Kang during his next video briefing 4 hours later. The lab had transformed into a makeshift command center, with military personnel working alongside scientists. They have no idea we're actually preparing a counterattack. Hyun-woo, who hadn't slept in over 30 hours, connected the final component to their prototype device, a maze of wires, quantum processors, and power cells that took up half the room. Power levels stable, he reported. Frequency modulation is holding. Begin the test sequence, Ji-won ordered. The machine hummed to life, generating a quantum field similar to the aliens' shields, then a second field designed to disrupt the first. On their monitors, they watched as the test shield flickered and collapsed. A cheer went up from the team, quickly silenced as an alarm blared through the facility. What's happening? Ji-won demanded. The Empire's commander just issued an ultimatum, General Kang said, rushing back into the lab. No more negotiations. They're moving their main fleet into low Earth orbit. We have 1 hour before they begin systematic destruction of major cities. Ji-won looked at their prototype, held together with spit and prayers, as her grandfather would have said, It's not ready for full deployment, she said. We haven't tested it at scale, haven't... We're out of time, Hyun-woo interrupted gently. It works in theory. It works in the lab. We have to try. Ji-won took a deep breath and nodded. Start the upload to the satellite network, and pray we're right about their standardized shields. The first prototype came online just as the Empire's commander issued his final warning. Above them, alien warships moved into position, weapons charged and targeting Earth's most populated cities. They had no idea what was coming. 72 hours after the invasion began, Earth launched its response. The command center beneath the mountains had transformed into a hub of desperate activity. Military personnel from a dozen nations coordinated through secure channels, while scientists made final adjustments to their unlikely weapon, satellite. Network is ready, called out Hyun-woo, his fingers dancing across 3 keyboards simultaneously. Lack of sleep had left dark circles under his eyes, but adrenaline kept him sharp. All 23 remaining civilian communication satellites are aligned and modified. Ji-won nodded, triple-checking the quantum calculations one last time. These weren't military satellites, just regular communications equipment hastily reprogrammed to emit her disruptor wave. The aliens had ignored them completely, focusing instead on destroying obvious military targets. General Kang, she said, turning to the commander who hadn't left the bunker in over 30 hours. Your forces are ready? The general nodded grimly. What's left of them? Submarines in the Pacific and Atlantic. Fighter squadrons hidden in mountain hangars. Ground-based missile batteries disguised as civilian infrastructure. He checked his watch. All coordinated to strike exactly 15 seconds after your signal. Ji-won looked around the room at the faces watching her. Scientists, soldiers, technical staff. Some she'd known for years, others she'd met only in this crisis. All united now in Earth's desperate gamble. If this doesn't work, began a junior engineer, then we're no worse off than before, Ji-won finished. She straightened her shoulders. Begin the countdown. High above the Earth, things appeared calm. From the Imperial perspective, the humans had stopped their pointless resistance and seemed resigned to their fate. Minor mopping-up operations continued, but the main fleet held position, ready to begin the subjugation phase. The alien fleet commander, Han Tai-sung, stood at his monitoring station aboard the secondary command vessel. As senior tactical officer, he'd argued against this mission from the start, not because he doubted their victory, but because he considered Earth too primitive to bother with. The resources hardly justified the effort. Status report, he demanded of his subordinates. Human. Military resistance is minimal and scattered, reported his second. Their governments are in disarray. Message traffic suggests they're preparing terms of surrender. Tae-sung nodded, satisfied despite his reservations. Perhaps the Emperor's interest in this backwater world wasn't completely misplaced. The natives had fought harder than expected, even managing to down a scout ship. Lucky hit, of course, nothing more. A junior officer approached nervously. Sir, we're detecting unusual energy readings from several points in their orbital shell. Weapons? Tae-sung asked sharply. Negative. The signatures are coming from civilian communications satellites. The energy levels are too low to be weapons. Tae-sung dismissed the concern with a wave. Probably trying to restore their communications network. Let them talk. It will make collecting their surrender easier. In the mountain bunker, Ji-won watched the countdown reach 0, initiating quantum field disruptor. Now, she said, pressing the activation key with steady fingers. Nothing visibly happened. No flash of light, no rumble of thunder. The quantum disruptor wasn't something you could see or hear, just a precisely modulated wave of energy designed to interfere with the exact frequency of the alien shields. For 3 agonizing seconds they waited. Did it! Began Hyunwoo. Look! Shouted someone, pointing at their orbital tracking display. On the screens, tiny dots representing the alien fleet began changing color from red to yellow, indicating shield failure. Aboard the Imperial secondary command ship, alarms blared suddenly. Tae-sung rushed to the main display as officers shouted over each other in confusion. Shield failure on the flagship. We're losing our defensive grid. It's spreading throughout the fleet. Tae-sung watched in disbelief as the invisible wave hit the Imperial flagship. Shield systems flickered and failed across the standardized fleet. The impossible was happening. Their impenetrable quantum barriers were collapsing simultaneously. Impossible, he gasped, fingers gripping the edge of the console so hard the material cracked. These primitives couldn't possibly understand quantum barrier technology, but they did. As shield indicators flashed red across his display, Tae-sung realized with dawning horror that they'd catastrophically underestimated these humans. Before he could issue orders to raise secondary shields or evasive maneuvers, new alarms sounded. Multiple launch detections from Earth's surface, missile launch from ocean positions, aircraft approaching from mountain regions, Earth's militaries. Launched a coordinated strike against the suddenly vulnerable ships. Everything that could still fly, float, or fire had been held in reserve for this moment. Missiles streaked upward from hidden silos. Submarines surfaced just long enough to empty their launch tubes before diving again. Fighter jets screamed into the sky from camouflaged bases. The Emperor's flagship, positioned proudly at the center of the formation, suffered critical damage immediately. Its massive bulk, suddenly unshielded, made a perfect target for the first wave of missiles. Secondary explosions bloomed across its hull as internal systems overloaded. Get the Emperor to safety, Tae-sung ordered. But it was too late. The flagship's communication array had been one of the first systems destroyed. Command structure was thrown into chaos as each ship tried independently to raise shields that refused to function. In the bunker, the humans watched in stunned silence as their monitors showed the results. The quantum disruptor had worked even better than they'd hoped, affecting every ship in the fleet simultaneously. 15 seconds, murmured Hyun-woo, watching the timer. Right on schedule, the alien shields should be coming back online. Indeed. On their screens, some of the alien vessels began showing shield regeneration, but for many it was already too late. Earth's weapons had found their marks during that brief window of vulnerability. "The flagship is going down," reported a military analyst, voice tight with controlled excitement. "Repeat, the flagship has sustained critical damage and is losing orbit." Cheers erupted around the room, quickly silenced by General Kang. "This isn't over," he warned. "We've bloodied their nose, but they still outnumber and outgun us. The element of surprise is gone." Ji-won was already working on her console. "The disruptor depleted our satellite network, but we've proven the concept works. We need to build ground-based disruptors immediately. More powerful versions that can—" She stopped as new information came in. The surviving alien ships were breaking formation, abandoning their attack positions. "They're retreating," General Kang said in disbelief, "moving to higher orbit beyond our weapon range." On the secondary command ship, Tae-sung barked orders for damage assessment as his fleet scrambled to regroup. Nearly a third of their vessels were destroyed or crippled, including the flagship and the Emperor's command staff. The humans had somehow developed technology that shouldn't be possible given their development level. "How?" demanded his second-in-command. "How did they know our shield frequency? How did they build a disruptor when they barely understand space travel?" Tae-sung stared at the blue-green planet below, seeing it with new eyes. These weren't the primitives they'd been led to believe. These humans had done in days what had taken his civilization centuries: adapt, innovate, and overcome a seemingly insurmountable technological gap. "Their mistake," observed Tae-sung grimly to his officers, "was assuming technological advancement equals intelligence. We judged them by their crude spacecraft and limited reach." He clenched his fist. "But intelligence isn't measured by what you've already built. It's measured by how quickly you can build what you need when survival demands it." He turned from the viewport. "Order all ships to fall back to lunar orbit. We need to reassess our entire approach." In the bunker, celebrations were tempered with the knowledge that this was just the first round of what might be a long war. But they had done the impossible. They had struck back and the Empire had blinked. "We've bought time," Ji-won said, allowing herself a moment of pride before focusing on the challenges ahead. "Now we need to use it wisely." 6 months later, the Empire returned with what they believed was overwhelming force. 150 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system, their massive hulls gleaming in the distant sunlight. At their center flew the new Imperial flagship, twice the size of its predecessor, and bristling with weapons designed specifically to counter Earth's defenses. Imperial Grand Commander Choi Min-ho stood on the command deck, hands clasped behind his back as he surveyed the tactical display. After the political dust had settled on the homeworld, he had emerged as both military leader and regent for the young heir to the throne. This mission was personal now, a chance to restore the Empire's honor and his own reputation. "Approach vector plotted, sir," reported his navigation officer. "We'll reach Earth orbit in 17 hours. "And our shield modifications?" Choi asked. "Complete, sir. The new randomizing frequency protocols will prevent the humans from disrupting our defenses again. Each ship can now independently adjust its shield harmonics." Choi nodded in satisfaction. They had learned from their mistake and adapted. The humans would find no easy victory this time. "Launch scout drones," he ordered. "Let's see what they've been up to." The small unmanned craft sped ahead of the main fleet, sensors extended to gather intelligence. As they approached Mars, the first anomalies appeared. "Sir," called out the sensor officer, confusion in his voice. "I'm detecting artificial structures on Mars and in orbit around it." Choi frowned. "That's impossible. The humans have no capacity for interplanetary construction." "The readings are clear, sir. And there's more. energy signatures throughout the solar system, some type of network extending from Venus to Jupiter. The scout drones transmitted images that left the bridge crew in stunned silence. Where 6 months ago there had been nothing but empty space and a primitive planet, now there was the beginnings of a solar system-wide civilization. Construction platforms orbited Earth. Small defense stations circled Mars. Automated mining. Operations had begun in the asteroid belt. Instead of cowering in fear, Earth had transformed. On Earth, in the gleaming new headquarters of the United Earth Defense Force, alarms sounded as sensors detected the approaching Imperial fleet. "Right on schedule," said General Kang, now Supreme Commander of Earth's combined military forces. "Alert all outposts and activate the defense grid." Beside him, Ji-won and Hyun-woo monitored their creation, the Quantum Communication Interceptor. The device was enormous, filling an underground chamber the size of a football stadium. Cooling systems hummed as superconducting circuits maintained the delicate quantum states necessary for their plan. "All systems nominal," reported Hyun-woo. "The network is ready. Around the solar system, a defensive perimeter extended to Mars. Using the reverse-engineered alien technology and humanity's newfound unity of purpose, Earth had accomplished in 6 months what might have taken decades otherwise. Quantum disruptors were deployed throughout the solar system, hidden on asteroids, moons, and purpose-built platforms. "They've modified their shields," noted Ji-won, studying the incoming data from their long-range scanners. "But it doesn't matter. Our plan never depended on disabling their shields again." President Moon Yoon-hee entered the command center, accompanied by representatives from the world's major nations. In the face of extinction, old enemies had become allies, setting aside centuries of conflict for the sake of survival. "Are we ready?" she asked, her voice steady despite the weight of responsibility. Ji-won nodded. "The quantum network is fully operational. Once their fleet reaches our outer defense perimeter, we can activate the interceptor." The president took her place at the communication station. No single leader had been chosen to speak for Earth. Instead, they would take turns delivering parts of humanity's message. President Moon would go first, as South Korea had been at the forefront of developing the technology that might save them all.